Let's do this. Hello, insects of YouTube. It is Adam Noyce from Adam Noyce, and welcome to the first part of, congratulations, the end of Evangelion Retrospective. And what do I mean by the first part? I mean that today I'm only going to be talking about the first half of End of Evangelion. Now, what do I exactly mean by that? For you noobs out there, well, I guess I should get into a little bit of history. What exactly is this film, and what does it really entail? Well, judging by my reaction to the last episode, you can gather that I didn't very much care for the final 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I can tell you that I was not the only one who despises those endings with an absolute loving fucking passion. Fans were so in an outrage that the show wound up falling down this deep, terrible, horrific path of absolute nonsenseness that they even started writing death notes to Hideaki Anno, telling him that he needs to redo these endings. Do I agree with that statement? No. As much as I despise those last 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion, I would not send death threats to Hideaki Anno because he screwed up these endings. I would never fucking do that. I understand why he made those last 2 episodes. I do. He ran out of money. He ran out of time. Mismanagement. There's a whole shit and caboodle stuff that went into that caused the downfall of those 2 episodes for the show. Now, because of this, because of the fan outrage of those last 2 episodes, Hideaki Anno went back to Gainax and some other company, I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head, and said, we need to redo the endings. And that is how we've got the end of Evangelion. Now, as the stupidity of the English voice acting cast never fucking ceases to amaze me, but they refer to the end of Evangelion as Hideaki's revenge. Do I agree with that statement? Not at all. Though there are some legit reasons or some legit excuses why people might think that. Because this film is very polarizing amongst fans. And I can easily say that I am one of the people that absolutely, positively fucking adore the living shit out of this film. Before this film was released, there was basically a recap version of the show that was released in theaters called Evangelion Death and Rebirth. Why am I not talking about that? I am not talking about that godforsaken piece of shit, because that's literally, it's nothing but a recap. It uses footage from all the previous episodes, and there's nothing new within it. All it manages to really do is cut out all the stuff that made Neon Genesis Evangelion what it was. And it didn't even really succeed at that. And that was for the first hour and 10 minutes of the movie, and then the final half hour of the film is nothing but the first half hour of the movie we are about to discuss. So I ignore it. I completely fucking ignore Death and Rebirth and just skip straight to the end of Evangelion. Now, because the end of Evangelion is basically a redo of the last 2 episodes, a lot of people make the unfortunate mistake of saying that this happens right after the ending to the show, and that this is Shinji waking up. That is not true. I used to be one of those people until I did my research. What this is it completely ignores the last 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion and just redoes them and gives us the ending that we were supposedly wanting to have. That being said, this is how I would love to view the show. I watch episode 1 through 24, and then I go straight to end of Evangelion. However, it is interesting to note that the end of Evangelion actually does follow the same structure as the final 2 episodes, but on a different level. Well, the last 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion really follow this definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, the mind of Shinji, or the mind of the characters, because basically that's where the entire episode takes place, is nothing but in their mind. The end of Evangelion takes it on a very physical sense. Takes it very much so of, this is what's happening. This is the ending that essentially we really want. And because of that, the movie is split into 2 parts, and we're discussing part 1 today. Now, part 1 is often described as the good part. My friend Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, loves the first part of this movie, but despises the second half, or at least I think he does, so apologize if I maybe stretched that a little bit, Andres. However, the first half is really fucking epic. It delivers on a lot of stuff that I really wanted with an ending. There's a lot of fights, it's epic, there's a lot of explosions, it's huge, and it really does deliver on a lot of elements. However, that second half is where fans start getting into major fan rages. Now, I'm bringing all this to the forefront here because, well, this is the end of my show. Congratulations, essentially, these next 2 episodes. So I'm bringing everything really up in the forefront now. I said in the very first episode that there's a statement that goes around, and if I said it several times in the Sons of Serizawa podcast, that there is a statement that goes around the Evangelion community that says, "Too deep for you." And I played it off as a joke within the first few episodes. However, some people mistook that as me being extremely fucking arrogant, which I am, and I will admit that I am an arrogant bastard. I like to say that that statement is full of fucking bullshit. How you experience a show and how I experience a show are 2 very different things. If you don't like this film, you don't like this film. It's that simple. You saw it in a different way than I simply did. No ifs, ands, or fucking buts about it. I'm the individualist. I've stated this several times. If you don't like it, so be it. What you like, I may not like. What's good for you is good for you. What's good for me is fucking good for me. And that's why I take that statement, because really, Too Deep for You was really brought about with the end of Evangelion. That's why I bring it up here. Now, I'm going to tell you why I like the end of Evangelion as much as I do. And I will go on par and say that I put this film on the list of greatest animated films of all time, and easily is one of the greatest anime films of all time as well. Yes, that means I put it on the same list as Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Grave of the Fireflies, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away. And everyone knows how much I adore that film. I can easily put this film, the end of Evangelion, on that list. Now, why do I like it so much? Well, the thing that really, again, this is the main thing that always will make me love the show and the end of Evangelion way more than the rebuild films, are the themes that are involved with the show itself, of growing up, of adolescence, of depression, and all that shit. Not religion, believe it or not, but so on and so forth, stuff like that. The animation is absolutely phenomenal. It was like all those things that happened in the show where they were running out of money, so they had to be very creative with how they did the angels. They just took that, threw it out the window, and said, here's a bunch of money, and this is what we got. And it's fucking fantastic. There's explosions, there's plenty of movement. In fact, I want to say that this is one of the first animes ever to actually use shaky cam. It gives us a lot of character closure. It doesn't give us quite all the closure that we necessarily want, but it still gives us a fuck of a lot more closure than the final 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion. For example, Gendo, Masato, and Ritsuko. And then, like the show, this movie has phenomenal music. It is absolutely haunting and powerful, and just really brings everything together. However, the number one important reason why I like this film is because the end of Evangelion actually gives me a legit ending. Now, of course, that's not very hard to say considering the shitfest we got with the last 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion. However, this did give us an ending. It's here. This is what happens, this is the progression of it happening, and this is the outcome of that decision. So it gave us an ending. So that's immediately what jumps out to me about this. And I could never say it was anywhere near as bad as the show, as the ending to the show, because this delivered on some of the things that the show was promising and building up to, but never delivered on. So let's just dive right on into this motherfucker and see what happens. Now, the first shot in the end of Evangelion is very reminiscent to how Shinji first met Kaoru. Now, as I'm not going to get into why I love Kaoru so much in this, but I mean, I will have to bring it up because it's definitely a bigger point later. However, what I do like about this is that it shows that Shinji is still very lonely, and again picks up right after where episode 24 ended. And Shinji is still standing at that spot where him and Masato had the talk, and he's clearly gone for a swim, and yada yada yada, stuff like that, because he's soaking wet. And he misses Kaoru. He feels lonely and shit like that. Masato's not there. Masato is off doing her own fucking thing, trying to figure out all this shit that's going on inside Nerve and Seele. And then we go immediately to the next scene in the hospital that is very, very, very infamous in the Evangelion universe, because Shinji jerks off to a comatose Asuka. I hate this scene. There is no way I can defend this scene. No possible way I can defend this scene. I wish this scene wasn't here. I wish it just jumped immediately to Aoba, them inside Nerve. I really fucking do, because I despise this scene with a passion. Now, however, it does kind of make some sense. Who does Shinji really go to, and who has Shinji really had somewhat of a physical attraction to kind of throughout this entire show? And that is Asuka. Asuka was that kind of woman. And so immediately, once Kaoru was dead, somebody that he fell in love with, and now he's dead, Shinji goes to Asuka, and Asuka won't do anything. He basically is begging Asuka to call him an idiot, do all this. And this becomes more prevalent later in the next part, but I'm going to start bringing it up here. And as he's begging things to go back to normal, he's begging Asuka to start calling him an idiot again. He's begging her to basically just come back awake and just bully the living shit out of him to bring things back to normal. He misses Masato, he misses Kaoru, he misses Ritsuko, he misses his friends because they've all fucking moved away. And thus makes the scene a bit justifiable until he fucking jerks off. Why the fuck is that there? There's no real purpose to this other than to show that Shinji's going through puberty, and we all know that he is because he's a 14-year-old boy. We all know this already, so why the fuck is it there? So, another thing that I really like about End of Evangelion is that it really does give Hyuga, Aoba, and Maya a personality. Because immediately, almost right from the get-go after Shinji jerking off, we have this happening. We have them saying, why are we still on first level alert when Kaoru was supposed to be the last angel? And they're like, I don't know. Clearly because Gendo has kept something from them a secret. He's kept a secret from them, which he's kept many secrets from them. Not just Gendo, but like Ritsuko, Masato, everybody has kept secrets from them. And then they all start discussing how, like, Nerve will probably be disbanded, to quote Aoba. Nerve will probably be disbanded, and they're like, what the fuck are we going to do now? They think it's done. They think that what's happening is over. Boy, did they have no idea what's coming, because Seele is pissed off and Seele is coming to fuck your shit up. Now, immediately what happens is this finally establishes, and I've got asked this before, actually, by one of the followers of this show. I got asked, why is Gendo and Seele so at odds with each other when they basically want the same thing? And this finally confirms, this part confirms why. Now, both sides, both Seele and Gendo, basically, they're extremely fucking selfish. Everything they're doing is out of their own personal greed and selfishness. However, the level of selfishness is at a different odds. The only reason why Gendo, and this is confirmed in this episode, why, and I'm going to call it episode, the only reason why Gendo wants to fucking start Third Impact and start the Human Instrumentality Project himself is because he wants to be reunited with Yui. He wants to be the person to trigger it for that selfish reason of wanting to feel warm again and wanting to feel Yui. And the only way he's going to be able to necessarily do that in his eyes is by starting Third Impact himself using Rei, the new Rei, who contains the soul of Lilith, while he contains the physical form of Adam, because, you know, his hand thing. That's confirmed in episode 22. Now, what is Sele doing? Sele is doing this for another selfish reason. They're doing this because they feel that the Human Instrumentality Project will basically bring every living being on Earth into one entity, therefore erasing all wants, erasing all needs, erasing all pain, erasing all suffering, basically erasing everything where we just become a one collective body. We become literally the perfect being. There is no such thing as the individual with the Human Instrumentality Project, either side. There is no such thing as the individual. We are all one. We are a collective, which terrifies the ever-living fuck out of me. I'm here right now because of what I want. I'm here because this is what I feel like I need to do. This is what I feel like I want to do. I do stuff because I want it. I better my life because I want to do such a goddamn thing. So this takes the whole idea of individualism and rips it away. I can easily say that the idea of the Human Instrumentality Project pisses me off more than the synthesis ending to Mass Effect 3. Yes, I just fucking went there. The idea of the Human Instrumentality Project is beyond frightening. No longer can you say I'm Adam. No longer could you say I'm Bob from Bobville. You can never say you are yourself anymore. You're just this floating pile of LCL liquid. Sure, you won't feel any pain or suffering anymore, but at the same time you won't feel warmth, you won't feel love, you won't have those chances to ever experience those emotions anymore, which ultimately leads to the decision, spoilers, that Shinji winds up making at the end of Evangelion. And we also know that something is amiss when Rei wakes up and breaks Gendo's glasses. Now, of course, by this time we know that she's not the Rei that the majority of the show has held, Rei 2. This is Rei 3. And so she naturally doesn't have that connection to Gendo that Rei 2 had. And the only reason why Rei 2 kept those glasses is because she had that connection with Gendo. This one does not. This one only has the imprint of that in her soul, in her mind, from the previous Rei. And thus, she hates him. She has that whole idea of the individual that Rei got thanks in part to Asuka and Shinji. And that's the main part that's been imprinted on Rei 3. And because Rei 3 feels that individuality, she starts feeling nothing but a puppet, because that's exactly what she is, to fucking Gendo. And therefore she takes those glasses, that good luck charm that we easily see Rei 2 hook up in her Evangelion before, she dies, smashes them, she breaks them, she gets rid of them. She doesn't need them anymore, which is so important later down in this movie. It's not even funny. Sele starts finally doing what they've been saying they've been going to do for like the last 10 episodes and finally fucking invade Nerve. And the way how they do it is genius. The first time they try to do is basically hack the Magi and basically shut Nerve down from the inside out, therefore making things happen a lot quicker at Sele's basic command and waste less lives, even though we're all gonna fucking die anyways because of the Human Instrumentality Project. Whatever, that's not important. And they start hacking into the Magi and everyone's freaking out like, holy shit, what's going on? They know that this is bad. And however, Fuyutsuki and Gendo know that this is a ploy. This is just to distract us from the real objection, and that is the Human Instrumentality Project. And everyone's freaking out. Gendo goes and gets Ritsuko. You know that he's desperate when he goes and gets Ritsuko, because Ritsuko murdered all those fucking Reis. She murdered any sort of idea of him being able to reunite with Yui, and she knows she did that. That's why she fucking did it. Or that's part of the reason why she fucking did it. Because, like her mother, she lost Rei, but we've already talked about that. And so when he goes and gets Ritsuko, she's like, oh, what an arrogant bastard. Gendo knows that she's in love with him, no matter what. And therefore, she's going to do whatever he tells her to do. And what does she do? She does that, and then she goes into the Magi room and starts discussing her boy troubles with her dead mother's brain and starts poking it with a stick. Like she did in that episode where like all the nanobots start going into Nerve HQ. Yeah, that awesome episode that establishes what the Magi are. Yeah, it comes full circle with this. It's phenomenal. And you see, this is why I love this show, is because it does start interconnecting all these shit and starts making some fucking sense. Another thing that I love about this is just how badass everything is, because you have Ritsuko doing her shit, you have Misato undoing the fucking tie, and she's walking down like, give me a status report, and she's like, we're gonna fucking do this, we have no fucking choice not to, because quite frankly I don't want to die. When Misato discovers that Ritsuko is working on the Magi, I love how fucking shocked she is. She's like, oh my god, we must really be desperate if we're getting Ritsuko out of fucking Gendo's version of prison to basically work on the Magi. And it makes sense why he's doing that, because it is her mom and shit like that, which winds up leading to Ritsuko's downfall later. Time for religious symbolism. Now this is going to come up several times throughout the next 2 episodes, but I'm going to bring up this one here. The code that winds up fixing the Magi, in essence, is the 666 code, and of course we all know naturally that the 666 code is the sign of the devil. Now, does that necessarily mean that that was done for a reason? And a lot of people actually complain about that, and I was one of the first people to do it, but then I started doing more research on it, or as to why Hideaki Anno would have gone with this weird decision, just like the eyeball vagina thing in the next episode. However, it makes sense because thematically it makes sense because it's showing just how fucking messed up NERV is, in case you haven't caught it. Like, if you're one of the people that just watch, unfortunately, Death and Rebirth, then this here would show you just how fucked up, strange Seele is, because a lot of that stuff, that hidden elements that made NERV so sketchy towards the end of the show, is lacking in Death and Rebirth. And this would be a fantastic way of showing you that things are amiss. Now, of course, the Japanese aren't very religious. They're not. They're not. And so this might be a little bit difficult to really interpret, but people know what they knew what Christianity was because of either pulp culture or other shit, and so on and so forth. And so seeing the 666 code pop up on the Magi would make you connect the dots. When Seele says, or Chairman Gale says, launch the invasion force, oh my god. Because they hope to do this somewhat peacefully, even though they were going to kill Gendo anyways, because Gendo is their ultimate threat. He is Adam, and he would keep them from going through with their form of the Human Instrumentality Project. And in fact, he fully says that. He says to Fuyusuke Gendo, he says, yes, of course they'd want to take over the base. We have both Adam, me, looking upon my hand, and Lilith in the same space. And that's when Fuyusuke goes, oh, no wonder why they're so nervous. And so Seele then launches a full-on fucking offensive against Seele. You've got tanks, you've got army dudes, you got infiltrators, you got snipers, you've got helicopters, you got N2 mines, you got fucking flamethrowers. They go full out when they say begin the invasion of NERV. Oh my god. One of the things that always struck me when I was watching this film, and it still does, is how fucking helpless you feel for the situation that's going on around you. I've made this comparison before, but I'll make it again here to drive my point home. You know, when Avatar: The Last Airbender, in the last 4 episodes, you're like, yeah, you're rooting for Aang, you're rooting for the heroes and stuff like that, and you're on the edge of your seat, you're like, yeah, do this, yeah, go them. Yeah, you can't have that here, because you can already see by connecting the dots as you watch what's unfolding on screen that no matter what you do, your main characters are fucked. No matter what you do, you are absolutely fucking powerless to do anything but just sit back and watch as the shit hits the fan. And that goes into why I've always said that you never watch Evangelion, you experience it, because it's all been building up to this point, and now we have 0 chance of winning. No matter what you do from this point on, you know you're gonna lose, and you just sit back and you take it, and it's like one of the worst feelings you can ever possibly have. And the thing that ultimately makes this probably the most depressing thing ever is that all the angels have been dealt with, right? All the angels have been killed thanks to the Evangelions. And the thing that ultimately brings the end of humanity, that brings the end of the planet as we fucking know it, is not an angel. It is the human race. Now, they call us the 18th angel, or whatever number it was. I totally forgot off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's the 18th, but don't quote me on that. It's the human race that ultimately brings our own destruction. That is so depressing. Just the idea alone that in the end, it wasn't the angels that did us in, it was ourselves. That's like such a Freudian thing. That really is. Freudian was a fucked up individual, in case you haven't noticed by the rest of the show and by what I've talked about. He was a fucked up individual, and just that whole premise that in the end it's just going to be us that does ourselves in is a very Freudian thing, and I've always said that Misato's the hero, and I will keep saying that, and I will always defend her as being the hero. And what I like about her is that her mother instincts immediately take over. Yes, of course, she's thinking about the Evangelions, but at this point she's thinking of the pilots because she knows that Sele's going to go after the pilots and kill them because the pilots are the only people that, can pilot the fucking Evangelions. And so she's like, no, get them to the robots. Get them to the fucking Evangelions. That's the only way we can really protect them. That's the safest place they can actually possibly be. Which is kind of ironic, but at the same time not, because it makes sense, because then they can immediately start up the robots and defend themselves. See, a lot of people thought that was hypocritical of Misato being like, oh, why are you sending them there? That's like the most dangerous place because that's where Sele's going to look. Not really. Sele can't do anything to the Evangelions other than cut the umbilical cord. As long as they have the umbilical cord in, and even when they don't have the umbilical cord in, with the exception of Eva Unit 01, the Evangelions can still fucking kick some ass. And so Misato does a very motherly thing. She immediately goes protect the children. Get them to the Evangelions. And she's like, where's Asuka? Asuka's there. Get her to Eva Unit 03. Even though she can't synchronize with it, get her there. That's the most safest place she can get. They have an AT field. There's no fucking way that a normal weapon can, unless it's another Evangelion, wink wink nudge nudge, can get into the presence of that other, of Eva Unit 02. Shinji's the same way. Yusuke, take over here. I understand, sir. Say hi to Yui for me. He knows exactly what Gendo's doing when he leaves. He's going to start initiating Third Impact, aka the Human Instrumentality Project. I love that moment, and it makes all the more sense in the next part, but I just wanted to bring it up here because I just love that whole moment where he says, say hi to Yui for me. Because he knows exactly what's going on, and at this point, Fuyutsuki is so fucking melancholy, even more melancholy than he normally is, than before, because he knows at this point, just like the fucking audience, that no matter what they do, they're going to fucking lose. Even though it's really hard to watch because we have all of our main characters like Misato and all the like Hyuga and all them, they're desperately trying to win. They're desperately trying to survive. And it makes it all the more tragic because we know they're going to fucking die. I would also like to bring up why Shinji is being such a fucking pussy in this episode, and that is because, well, let me give you a little bit of backstory. Dylan McCandless, Super DM 64, go subscribe to him, he's awesome. Go subscribe to him, he's amazing. To me, the only thing that annoyed me really about the end of Evangelion is that Shinji, despite the ending to episode 20, Shinji was still being a pussy and being a complete loner and depressed. And I said, you've made the same mistake that a lot of first-time viewers, including myself, did, and they think that this takes place in the same continuity. It doesn't. This, again, ignores those two episodes and takes place immediately after the end of episode 24. He just killed Kaoru. He's so depressed. He's still really depressed over the fact that he's killed Kaoru because that in this happened like the day before. So it makes all the more sense why, maybe not the day before, but this makes all the more sense why he's acting the way he is. He's lost his entire livelihood. His friends are gone. Misato's gone cold. Asuka's gone. And again, that goes into the fact that every single fucking character in this show does not progress like, a normal character would in the show. They regress into these husks of nothingness. And I complained about that in episode 25 and 26 of Congratulations, but here I'm going to say this is done right. Everything comes to basic closure and stuff like that, and though not every character progresses, like Misato, she progresses quite well here. But Shinji is just, what the fuck? He's reduced to nothing, and I can't help but be like, yeah, at this point, if I was 14 years old, despite the fact that I have the rest of humanity on my shoulders, I too feel really bad, but I'd still do something about it. And then later on in this fucking episode, he tries to fucking help, And he can't because of the decision Misato makes to release a bunch of Bakelite, which is basically this artificial blood shit, to flood the halls and to slow Seele down. So he can't get to his robot to help. The only thing he can fucking do is sit there. See, something that I love about Evangelion is that Evangelion has a tendency to be a little fucked up, right? Right. But they do it in a very realistic way. What they do is they give you time to take a breath between the fucked upness and then do something fucked up. It's not like a lot of modern anime where they just throw things fucked up at you for the sake of throwing some fucked up things at you. Here, you get what you expect to see. You see broken bones. When people get shot, they don't burst into blood piñatas. When an Evangelion gets torn apart later on here, you see guts. You see them actually get torn apart. It's what something getting torn apart would look like. It's nothing like a blood piñata. Hell, you know, in the ending of Death Note, spoilers, where that guy who's in love with Kira fucking stabs himself and there's blood everywhere. Yeah, that's not here. When someone gets shot, they get shot. I mean, there's blood, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't splatter all over the fucking place. They look like they get shot. Very much like a Sam Peckinpah kind of thing. In Sam Peckinpah movies, when somebody gets shot, there's a lot of blood, but it's realistic blood, you know? And that's the same way here. And that's what I've always applauded Evangelion for doing, is because their fucked up isn't necessarily in the blood. It's in the characters, and it's in the decisions that the characters make. And sometimes the images can be really fucked up or really disturbing, but they're few and far between. Seele kills everyone. Holy shit. I forgot how much Seele just goes apeshit when they're invading the Nerve base. They got innocent women running away. No, mow them down. The fucking scene with the flamethrower going into one of the rooms? Oh my god, one of the living rooms of Nerve HQ. Flamethrower in it, and you hear people screaming bloody murder as they get burnt alive inside there. You see, this is what I wanted. I am so fucked up. This is what I wanted. Another thing that I like is how Maya's the person to bring it up, and they're getting stormed, and Hyuga and Aoba, they're getting ready to kick some ass. And Maya is just cowering underneath her computer station while typing on that computer of hers, keeping things kind of going. And Aoba hands her a pistol, and it goes into just how opposite they are, which I brought up in an earlier episode, but it comes full circle here. Aoba's like, here, and she's like, I can't use this. And he's like, you've been to basic training. And she goes, yes, but I shot at targets then. And he says, you idiot, it's kill or be killed, and I don't want to die. Even though you're going to die anyways, because everybody fucking dies in this movie. And that's exactly what happens. You know, Maya brings up a good point. She was trained to fight fucking angels, not humans, and that is why Nerve is falling apart so much. Seele has these troops that are meant for storming and killing humans. They've been trained to do this shit. They are military personnel. Nerve is just a bunch of scientists, really. I mean, there's guards, but what are they gonna do? I mean, they weren't necessarily completely trained Black Ops soldiers like the people that are invading Nerve. And another thing I want to actually bring up now that I'm thinking of this, look at the color choices. All the people working for Nerve are wearing white, and all the people that work for Seele are black, and that includes Gendo. Well, Gendo's kind of black, but that includes that includes the monoliths of Seele, the voice-only things, and that includes the soldiers. They're all wearing black. Anything that has to do with Seele or the Human Instrumentality Project itself is fucking black. Gendo's black, if you look at it. His outfit is black. I love it. I love that kind of imagery, that kind of stuff like that says these are the bad guys, but yet these aren't quite the good guys. You know, there's this kind of whole shit and caboodle stuff going on. It's geniusly well done. When the Seele guards catch up to Shinji, one of them put a pistol to his head, and he goes, "Sorry, kid, nothing personal," when they get the order to terminate him. And of course, Misato saves the day like, you know, the complete badass that she is. But why do I bring this up and not just go straight to Misato saves Shinji's ass? I bring this up because the dubbing approaches this terribly, In the dubbing, the guy who says "sorry kid, nothing personal" says it like really cynical. It's like "sorry kid, nothing personal." Like he's joking. First, the dub for this movie is fucking atrocious, but the Japanese voice acting is really good. Here, just to add some more human elements to what's going on around them, again, going to that sort of humanist message that goes on throughout this show, he sounds very remorse when he says, "sorry kid, nothing personal." Like he doesn't want to do it. The only reason why he's doing it is because he's been ordered to do it. He doesn't want to kill Shinji. That added a level of realism to me that really made me appreciate Anno's half and half vision with this movie, and just the execution of how beautifully done the Japanese voice acting is in this show in general. Now, something that I would like to mention is that I recently read the manga to Evangelion, and I have mixed feelings about the manga, but I love the ending the best to the manga. Here, it isn't Misato that saves, spoilers, isn't Misato that saves Shinji, it's fucking Gendo's dad. That's Shinji's dad. It's fucking Gendo. Which brings about some more closure that we get in the end of Evangelion, but it's not quite what I think a lot of people were looking for. For example, Andres didn't like the closure that we got in this. Well, I did, because it fit the character that they were going for with Gendo a lot more. But yet it fit the Gendo in the manga, it fit that Gendo more in there as well. So I can't really complain about it. But I can honestly say I actually like that little bit where Gendo saves Shinji instead. A little bit better than Misato here. However, if it wasn't for the fact that we get Misato here, we wouldn't fucking get the epicness that is the next scene. Notice how suicide is a constant theme in Evangelion? First it's Ritsuko, then it's Asuka, then it's Misato, and now it's Shinji saying, "I just want to die." Now, of course, what I like about Misato is Misato got out of that slump pretty goddamn quick when she got another purpose. She's like, fuck, we gotta do this, and then she kind of snaps out of it, but Shinji just is going, "I want to die." That's what he's saying, and that strikes me very personally because there was a point where I did want to die, but I didn't do it because there was a possibility, basically like what Shinji goes through, there was a possibility of me finding happiness somewhere else. What made me appreciate this is Misato grabs him, and she's very much flying off the wall, and she does a very human thing and says, "I don't care right now, you can die later. You can't find Rei, Asuka's comatose, and you're it, Shinji. I'm sorry. If we have any chance of surviving, it's with you, and we know that nothing's gonna happen." And to try to get Shinji back on his feet, I love how Misato completely opens up to him. He's like, "This is what's going on, Shinji." So we get established, almost from the get-go, just how fucking useless and powerless the whole government is. And this only confirms it because we get the Prime Minister of Japan sitting there, and he's like, "Oh, well, Nerve and Seele are kind of having like this civil war thing going on, sir, and they're kind of blowing each other up, this kind of thing." And he's sitting there like, "Well, what can we do?" And it shows that how powerless and how afraid they really are of how powerful Seele is. Seele is basically established in this scene as being that force that basically controls the world. They're the ones that call the shots, and of course they're the ones that are trying to initiate the Human Instrumentality Project with the Evangelion series. Do you remember in the previous episode where I said that we always wanted Asuka to be that sympathetic bitch that we always kind of expected but never really got because the show, ran out of money? Yeah, we finally get that, and I can honestly say that finally in this given film, or this part of the movie of End of Evangelion, we finally get that Asuka that we want. And I actually can say I enjoy her because she finally learns, a little bit too late arguably, but she finally learns that it isn't just about her. She wakes up and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm still alive." And then of course you see Seele just nuking the ever-living shit out of her Evangelion, and she keeps saying, "I don't want to die, and I don't want to die, I don't want to die," which is the total opposite of episode 24, where she was like, "I just want to die." And then she realizes just what... It's very hard to explain, because she hears the voice of her mother, the one that wound up hanging herself in episode 22. She hears her dead mother, and here's the thing. I don't know, and I have yet to draw a decision on this. I have to do more research on it. If she's actually hearing her mother, or if she's just gone absolutely insane. And you see, either way, it wouldn't surprise me, because we all know how Hideaki Anno went apeshit during the making of this movie. I'm surprised he wasn't locked away in an insane asylum. And how, it would make sense why she'd go crazy, but at the same time, with how Shinji always communicates with his mother through the Evangelion, it would make sense why she does it. The only difference here is that Eva Unit 02 is made from an atom. It's a copy of Adam. So, and her mother never had contact with this Evangelion, so why is she hearing it? She was never absorbed into the LCL like Shinji's mother did. And you see, Shinji's the Evangelion, Eva Unit 01. Is the only Evangelion not to be made from Adam, but to be made by Lilith. His mother purposefully dissolved into LCL, killing herself, kind of, she's not really dead, into there. Therefore, it makes sense why Shinji can basically speak to her while inside this giant motherfucking robot. Why does Asuka hear this? I don't know, but what we get is awesome, because suddenly she wakes up, she knows the meaning of the AT field. It's like she's been, as a theme with the rest of this movie, it's like she's been reborn. I mean, the words keep popping up throughout the episode itself. Constantly, she's like, "Oh, I've been." Seele constantly says it's time to be reborn, or it's time to commence the rebirth. They say rebirth and reborn over and over again, like they almost want to hit you in the head, saying, "Oh yeah, that's the main theme in this." And that's exactly what goes on with Asuka Langley-Zoryu, is that she basically wakes up. She's basically had this kind of hero's journey like Shinji's had. Asuka basically becoming this resurrected form of her. She's basically now, in that theme of growing up, she is now entered into that adulthood. She is now an adult from this point, and my God, is it totally worth seeing her do this, because she goes apeshit insane. She starts killing everything and everybody. It's just like the ultimate badass scene. And what we really love about this is that a lot of times in the show, because of the money constraints that the show had, we could never really see the full extent of the powers of the Evangelions. But now, because they were making this movie and they had a considerable amount more money to, play around with, we finally get to see what the Evangelions do. And of course, I've always said the Evangelion Unit 02, Asuka's Evangelion, was definitely the melee one. Was definitely the one that could get up and close and move quickly and do all that kind of shit. And it's very much so true here, considering how she fights all the other Evangelions that have been mass-produced, which we'll get into that a little later. She's kicking all these helicopters, she's jumping, she's leaping around all over the place, she's using her knife and everything like that, and we finally get to see just how powerful and even scary these Evangelions can be. And the reactions that the humans get, or the Seele officers get when they see her come out, they're like, oh shit, just kind of like you are. They're basically thinking what the audience is thinking, which is extremely well written. I can't help but make a note of this, and a lot of other people when analyzing this show, because everybody knows that everybody and their fucking brother has to analyze the show at least once. But I can't help but also notice it. And to be honest, I can't decide if the reason why they did this was one of two ways. There was a lot of repeat in imagery throughout this show, and I've never brought it up before because I was deliberately saving it up for the end of Evangelion. In the first episode, Angel Attacks, or whatever that episode, I think that's what it was called, we see the first Angel get these two fucking giant intercontinental ballistic missiles to the face. And why nobody has made that a meme is beyond me. And he punches one, and then the other one hits his face, and they blow up, and he's intact because of the AT field. That happens exactly, verbatim in this scene. Eva Unit 02 gets that. Eva Unit 02 gets hit twice, she punches one, and then she gets one in the face, and it blows up, and she's perfectly fine because of her AT field. Now, there's one of two ways you can decipher that. One is the reuse of imagery was just a simple way to save money for Hideaki Anno and Gainax. Or you can go into sort of Freudian approach, which is what Hideaki Anno openly admitted that he was, and say that everything is connected. Which is the one that I tend to lean towards a little bit more, just because of all the themes of growing up and coming of age that the show Evangelion dives into. However, both are extremely justified in their positions. So if you see it one way, I'm not going to really argue with you, because it very well could be true. I could be looking way too much into it. In fact, I'm pretty sure, considering the fact that what I've said about Godzilla movies, I'm pretty sure I'm really reading into it a little bit too much. However, we all know that everything is really interconnected. We discover here that really the last angels are humans, and you've all never thought that we were humans. We always thought that we were part of, Lilith, and angels came from Adam, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of twists and turns that could lead you to think, and I'm one of those people, that Anna was going forward when writing the beautiful script to this absolutely magnificent part of the film, that we were all interconnected in some way, be it through that kind of feeling of destiny, or that feeling of fate, shit like that. That loathsome Evangelion, it's time that we fight fire with fire. I love that line by Chairman Gale. And we finally get all those mass-produced Evangelions that they've been sort of hinting at throughout the entire show that we never got in the last 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion, but thank God we finally get them here, so yeah. They're scary as shit because they don't need a pilot. And you see, that was the thing that separated them. I mean, that was a theme in one of the old episodes, was when they had the prototype, the thing that was clearly a Jet Jaguar ripoff. But anyways, it didn't need, the thing that was key with that episode is that Evangelion didn't need a pilot. And of course, the regular Evangelions, Eva Unit 0, 1, and 2, all needed a pilot in order to possibly function. I mean, that's why they're called a mech, even though they're not really a mech. They're nothing but these organic beings shackled inside a mechanical body. Sort of like the opposite of, Five Nights at Freddy's. First off, Sele goes full out and doesn't just release, 3 or 4 of these mass-produced Evangelions on Eva Unit 02. No, they send all 12. 9. And man, do they kick ass. They're extremely frightening in design. They just look unnerving when you see them. They have these really creepy smiles on their face, unlike the regular Evangelions, which look very, very kind of sleek. These things look very clunky. They look very, believe it or not, the things that they've been described as the most are actually hawks. And I can kind of see that, considering how it's I love how when they fly down. First thing, these things can fly, unlike the other ones, unlike the other Evangelions. I mean, it's a point that they can't fly. I mean, that was the whole reason why Asuka winds up getting mind raped for 15 minutes in episode 22. But these ones can fly, which makes them a formidable foe anyways. Just ups the stakes even more. But anyways, when these all land, another thing that really I found interesting, I didn't notice until I was reading another review for this movie, is the dummy plugs for Eva Unit 01 were made with Rey's DNA, with her soul. And when you see those same dummy plugs getting brought into the mass-produced Evas, they say Kaoru on it. And I was like, oh, I just noticed that. And I was all excited when I saw that. And now suddenly everything began to make sense as to why they act the way they are. Because basically, and it goes into the theme of the show reusing a lot of images over and over again. Not stock footage images, but just using kind of the same frame rates and stuff like that. How everything is interconnected, because it proves there and then, because you never really got it, or it was kind of inference just because, they're both basically albino, but you never really understood if Rey and Kaoru were basically the same being, just one happened to have the soul of Lilith and the other one happened to have the soul of Adam. And this confirms that they were basically the same being, that there was almost no difference between the two, despite the fact that they can exist, according to our logic, they can exist in the same place at the same time. And of course, that's the whole reason why Earth is fucked up in the first place, because this is literally the only place in the entire galaxy where you unfortunately had both a Lilith and a Adam fall onto the same Earth, and they can't coexist. Time to go on a field trip. So Masato gets shot, and everyone knows, and I've only gushed about her about a bajillion times throughout the show, but she is my favorite character in Evangelion. She clearly is the hero. And what I like about the scene is that, unlike in the last 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion, where we don't understand what the fuck happened to her, we just see her shot, and then the rest of it's in Shinji's mind, so we're like, what the fuck just happened? Here we actually get her closure. And this is closure done right. Because out of all of how fucked up her past was, with how fucked up her life had been beforehand, what does she worry about? When she is about to die, her last words are, if I really had my way, I would have changed the carpets like Asuka suggested. Really? That's what she's thinking about? That's perfect. I'm sorry, that's perfect. Out of all the shit that Misato had gone throughout the show, but also her past with her father, with surviving Second Impact, that's what finally makes her, come back to normal. I think it's a fantastic way to end Misato. It's really sad and tragic, but yet at the same time, it's that kind of sad and tragic that it just ends so perfectly you can't help but cry. It's that kind of ending for Misato. However, I'm going to get into why she kisses Shinji. I've always said that she was very much acts like a mother, kind of big sister, kind of. She's had that kind of relationship with Shinji. However, at this point, Misato ain't dumb. We've established this several times throughout both the series and both from what I've said. She ain't dumb. She's not stupid. She's she can read emotions very well. I think a lot of that she's learned from Ritsuko, believe it or not, which makes me love the relationship that those two have even more in terms of their friendship. But anyways, I digress because those two don't even share a fucking scene together in this movie. Anyways. She gets shot, and Misato immediately knows that she's going to die. That this shot, it's in the gut, she's going to bleed out, there's no way she can get help, she's going to fucking die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. And we as an audience know that this is what's going to happen because she immediately changes her persona. She goes from that calm, kind of angry person to suddenly one of very peaceful, one of very, very sort of happy. And she goes, yeah, don't worry, and everything's going to be fine. Now I need you, Shinji, to go pilot the Eva. And of course, Shinji, being the pussy that he is, doesn't go and pilot the Eva. He's like, there's no purpose. I hurt Asuka, which we'll get into that later in the next episode. I hurt Asuka. I killed Kaoru. Every single person that I get in contact, Toji, every person I get in contact with, I wind up hurting. Again, going into the Hedgehog's dilemma. And Misato goes, you need to stop wallowing. That's the risks that you're going to have to take. That's fucking life in general, Shinji, and quite frankly, I agree with her. She then realizes by the look, because Shinji refused to make eye contact with her. In fact, Shinji hasn't made eye contact, from what we've seen in this show, compared to the beginning of the show. Towards the later half of the show, Shinji never makes eye contact with Misato. Which is very important, especially for this scene, because this is the first time that it happens literally since episode 15. Misato forces Shinji to look at her by grabbing the sides of his face and pinning him against that elevator wall door thingamajigger. And says, this is what you gotta do. You gotta pilot the Eva, if not once, at least for me. Because at this point, she knows that Shinji has stopped looking at her as that kind of older sister, mother. In fact, I don't think Shinji ever really looked at her that way. Other than the fact that she was family, and then they grew apart, and they actually started hating each other for a while because of all the shit that was going on between her and Misato and Kaji. How can I forget Kaji's name? He's awesome. And so to get Shinji to basically go down there and pilot the Eva to help Asuka outfight these other Evangelions, she kisses him. She kisses him and says the weirdest fucking line ever. She goes, that was a grown-up kiss. And I was like, okay. She goes, that was a grown-up kiss. We'll do the rest when you get back. And I'm like, ugh, whatever. And then, of course, the elevator doors open. She hands Shinji, beforehand, she hands Shinji her Greek cross, which is a beautiful moment, in my opinion, because I've already discussed in a religious symbolism section of this show what the Greek cross represents, and that is strength and light. And the fact that she gave it to him is like basically like a passing on of the torch. And Shinji takes it. He doesn't really know what to do with it. But that image of Misato's cross keeps coming back throughout the rest of this episode into the next episode. In fact, I almost guarantee it that is the reason why Shinji, spoilers, winds up rejecting the Human Instrumentality Project. Is because he sees Misato's cross and he kept it with him. Kind of like that good luck charm that Rei 2 had with Gendo's glasses. This is his good luck charm. This is his way of bringing himself back to reality. But I love this scene so much, and she lies down, and when Shinji goes away, she lies down. She knew that she was going to die. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. She's bleeding out, and she says, I should have changed the carpets like Asuka suggested, huh, Pen? Because she gave Pen away. She's talking about all these people that she's cared about. She just said goodbye to Shinji without Shinji really knowing it. She hasn't said goodbye to Asuka, Pen, or Kaji. Those are the people that she really cares about now. Ever since the fallout that she had with Ritsuko, she's never really considered Ritsuko a friend, so it makes sense why she wouldn't really think of Ritsuko in the situation. And the last thing she says is, I did the right thing, didn't I, Kaji? And then she blows up. They blow up Seele blows up the level, or the floor. And before that, we get an interesting thing. We have an apparition of Rei staring down at her before the explosion goes off. It only lasts for a few frames, but you see Rei there. And I'm not going to get into why you see Rei there, because she pops up several times throughout this movie, until the final shot of Evangelion. That is when I will talk about it, because it ties perfectly with one of the first shots of the first episode of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I'm saving it for then. But anyways, powerful scene. Absolutely powerful scene, extremely well written. In fact, the next few scenes are really fucking well done. But I think this one takes the cake, because I always found Misato to be that character that kind of kept this show grounded. Despite the hardships that went through, she's always bounced back. In fact, that's part of her character. She always bounces back from these hardships. Ritsuko didn't. She fell right the fuck apart. Shinji most certainly doesn't until the ending. Asuka barely does in this one, which is nice to see. Gendo most certainly doesn't, as we find out. Everybody just starts falling apart except for her. And to see her dead in this episode is really tragic, but yet at the same time it fit, because she'd finally reached full circle where out of all the things she could worry about, she feels so at peace with herself. Unlike any of the other characters, she feels so at peace with herself that the only thing she's really worried about was changing the carpet colors. I think it's a beautiful moment for a beautiful character, and that was a fantastic way to end her. Okay, so immediately following Misato's tragic death, we have Ritsuko's even more tragic death. First off, just a testament to how much I love the editing in this movie. It's intercut with this heart-pounding action with Asuka and fighting all the other Evas. And of course, that's really intense. Cut to this really mellow battle going on, really internal battle going on between Ritsuko and Gendo. Really well done and well put together. And that use of music, I'm pretty sure it's something by Mozart. Just really complements the scene well, and just how melancholy, and really just enforces how helpless you feel as an audience member watching it. But I digress. Let's actually talk about the scene, because the scene itself is there's a lot to fucking talk about. God damn this movie. I love it. So Ritsuko goes into the lair of Lilith and Central Dogma, and Gendo and Rei are there to basically initiate the Human Instrumentality Project, but, suddenly they see Ritsuko there, and Ritsuko points a gun at them and says, haha. And she goes basically to get her revenge on Gendo for doing all the horrible shit that he did, even though she did just as horrible shit as he did. She goes, I tricked you, I reprogrammed the Magi. And of course we all know that the Magi are basically the three representation of Ritsuko's mother as both a woman, a scientist, and a mother. The three aspects of what she believed a woman was. And of course she goes, would you grant your daughter one last dying wish? And she presses a button and nothing happens. She clearly programmed the computers to blow up, or do something that would fuck Seele and Gendo and Nerve and everybody over, and it doesn't work. And she looks and it says, Casper has denied this aspect, has denied this request. And what was Casper? Casper was the woman side of Ritsuko. Of Ritsuko's mother. Now, Ritsuko's mother was in love with Gendo, if you don't remember from that wonderful part on episode 21, before she jumped off a balcony after strangling a, 5-year-old Rei. She was in love with Gendo, and that's the reason why she wound up killing herself, essentially, other than strangling a 5-year-old Rei. What's also funny is that Casper was also that part in the episode where the nanobots were trying to hack into the Magi. That's the episode where we learned what the Magi was, and it was Casper that Ritsuko had to reprogram from the first place to help fight off the nanobot. And so now we have Casper betraying her, which makes it all the more tragic, because basically it's saying that in the end, Ritsuko's mom chose Gendo over her own daughter. We openly knew, and it kind of foreshadowed that something like this was going to happen, even though I don't know if it was intentional or not. But in episode 21, it clearly says that Ritsuko's mom feels bad that she was such a terrible mother to Ritsuko. She always felt like she put her duty and Gendo above her own daughter. She always did this, so the fact that this happened didn't really shock me when I saw it, because it kind of hinted that something like this was going to happen in an earlier episode. However, the thing that is talked about a lot, and I'm definitely going to bring this up, is the muted line, the missing line from this movie. There's a lot of fan theories out there, and the most common one is to say when Gendo points the gun at Ritsuko and says, "Ritsuko Akagi, I truly," and suddenly it goes silent. All you see is him moving his lips. He's clearly saying something, but everything's muted. You don't know what he said, and then Ritsuko looks up and says, "You liar," and then Gendo shoots her. And she falls into the thing of LCLs and sees a Rei. I'll get into that later. However, what did he say? The most common fan theory, or the most accepted one, is that Gendo points the gun at her, and this is kind of confirmed by the manga, because in the manga you do finally understand what he says, and he says, "I truly needed you," or "I truly loved you," one of the two. And she goes, "You liar." Now that's the most common one, as a hint later on in the next episode, where her ghost form touches and says, "I needed you" on a computer before she kills Maya. Spoiler alert. And however, I don't buy it. I really don't. And it could very well be that she said that Gendo said, "I needed you." However, I don't buy it. To be honest, I think him going silent was actually a very smart move by the director and Hideaki Anno, because Ritsuko at this point is so blind to what Gendo is trying to do at this point, even though it's bad. She is so self-absorbed in her hatred and depression because of that man. She's almost like ignoring everything that he says. He does it he doesn't even answer his questions in episode 24, where he goes and sees her in the cell and says, "Why'd you kill Rei?" He doesn't answer her question. All she does is say, "Is my cat died." And so that crazy old cat lady is ignoring what Gendo says. This is my theory, is ignoring what Gendo is saying. And no matter what he says, even if it's true or not, she's going to say, "You're a liar." Because of all the shit that he has been putting her through and all the torture he not only did to Ritsuko, but her mother as well. And therefore she's ignoring it, Gendo shoots her, and she fucking dies. A really well put together scene. A really well executed scene. It makes you ask a lot more questions than it answers, arguably, and a lot of people can complain with that, but I really like it for that reason. It made me think. And everybody knows that I love things that make me think, hence why I love this show to death. You see Shinji, he's in that basic fetal position that he usually gets in, basically because he can't get to his Evangelion, despite the fact that he wants to get to his Evangelion. He can't get into the Evangelion because, well, the entire place is covered in bakelite, and everything's frozen in. He can't get to Eva Unit 01. It's impossible for him to do it, so he basically has to sit there and listen to Asuka getting her ass handed to her outside. And it's not until he hears something familiar that he kind of starts snapping out of it, and he starts wanting to pilot it even more. He wants to help Asuka. And that is because he hears Asuka say, "Mama's watching over me." And of course, what was the whole thing that Shinji never really knew of? And that was his mom. He never knew his mother, and he never really knew his dad, but his mother was that one thing that kind of connected him with Eva Unit 01. It was that one key element that made him the best pilot out of them all, was the fact that his mother was technically in there with him, guiding him and answering questions for him, and so on and so forth. And that key sentence, "Mama's watching over me," that key sentence is what snaps Shinji out of this trance in all reality. Now, I, to this day, try to wrap my head around this scene, and I still can't say that I 100% get it, but I just love it nonetheless because of that reason. So Asuka dies next. I finally say that I like her, and what happens? She fucking dies. And how she dies is beautiful, but yet at the same time unbelievably disturbing. She basically, what happens is the missing Lance of Longinus, it's been established that there have been two Lance of Longinuses. One was for Adam and one was for Lilith. The one for Adam the one for Lilith is missing, but the one for Adam was found. And the one for Adam they were using before, they saved Asuka with it, to basically keep Lilith from growing. They got Lilith to the most powerful state, and then they stabbed her with it, and then that kind of kept her from growing. And so we finally know where the missing Lance of Longinus went, and that was Sele had it the entire time, and they use it to finally kill Asuka. Basically, Asuka's almost gotten all of those mass-produced Evas beaten to a living pulp, and suddenly she sees it, and it pierces her AT field, because that's the only weapon that can ever pierce an AT field, and it stabs her right in the eye, and of course she feels that entire thing. She falls to the ground, and then all of a sudden we got zombie Evas that come up, and they start picking her apart like a bunch of hawks, hence why that kind of thing was brought up, or that kind of analysis was brought up. And then they start tearing her apart. It's kind of disturbing to look at, but yet at the same time kind of beautiful, and I hate to admit that, just like the rest of the goddamn movie. She still wants to fight them. She's like, I have to fight them. That's what she feels like her new purpose is, and then she dies. Basically all those like sword thingamajigers that all those Evas have just stab right into her. The imagery's beautiful, but just disturbing to kind of speak about. Sounds is more disturbing than what it looks like. And she dies. And of course, that awakens Eva Unit 01. It basically goes berserk, and it puts Shinji within it. Shinji's able to get within it, and then shit hits the fan. And of course, when that happens, when Eva Unit 01 is awakened, Gendo has been waiting for this moment to start the Human Instrumentality Project on his own hand. And this just goes in just, again, how powerless you feel as a viewer watching this. You know Asuka's gonna die. You know Ritsuko's gonna die. You know everyone is going to die, you just don't know when. And you feel so utterly powerless. And you just sit there and you have no choice but to sit through it and experience what's happening. And that really is what will always make me remember the show more than anything else, is the fact that I never before in any viewing experience in my life have felt this goddamn helpless. Where it's like, I, the viewer, am powerless to help. And of course you, the viewer, you're powerless to help, because this is a movie, it's already been pre-made, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But there are movies where you feel like, yeah, oh my god, like you're on the edge of your seat, you're like, oh my god, what's going on, and you're rooting for the good guy, or you're rooting for the bad guy, so on and so forth. Star Wars, for example. Or Kirk versus Khan in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, that kind of stuff where I was sitting on a seat rooting for Kirk the entire time. Here, you sit back in your seat and you have no choice but to accept the fact that everyone you know and love is going to fucking die. So, like Eva Unit 02, when she wakes up, when Eva Unit 01 wakes up, there's a beautiful cross that goes in the sky, signifying that it's awake. However, something's different, and that is it starts splitting into those wing-looking thingy-majiggers that we saw at the end, or at the beginning of that episode where we discover Masato's backstory and basically establishes what Second Impact really was. It's the same exact imagery, except a different color. This one's purple instead of red. And then Shinji screams after seeing... Basically, he has the same reaction that a lot of us had. Viewing this film, and that is he screams, and then it cuts to be continued, meaning third impact has arrived. And now there's no going back. We're all going to die. Well, that's it. That's episode 25 of the end of Evangelion. Absolutely phenomenal. I love this part of the film. It's so action-packed. It's so many explosions. This has so many explosions. It makes Terra Mechagodzilla look tame. There are that many explosions in here. This one really is just all balls to the wall action. There is so much shit going on in this first part of the episode, where the next part really focuses on Shinji. This part focused on everybody and giving a lot of people a lot of the closure that we desperately wanted in episode 25 and 26 of Neon Genesis Evangelion, but never got. I'm Adam Noyes from Adam Noyes. Stay tuned for the next and final episode of Congratulations and sayonara.